Well, good morning, everyone. It is a beautiful Thursday morning, July 14th, 2022. We're nearly halfway through the month. So if you're one of our white label partners, we want to make sure that we're here to support you in accomplishing your goals for the month. If you're a white label partner on the access to capital side, we know that you're looking to help at least 8 clients each month, including the month of July. Using tools and techniques that we've been training on, that shouldn't be a problem. You can get leads list of all newly formed businesses, new LLC, C Corps, S Corps, that's public information. You can post on Craigslist. You can develop referral partner programs, all kinds of ways to attract those tens of millions of small businesses that's needing capital to start and grow. If you're a white label partner, alternatively over on the 60-day credit suite, we're working together to help at least 10 clients a month. And so we should be at least around 5 right now at the halfway point. So if there's anything that we can do to assist you in reaching those goals, let us know. But I think these daily trainings, if you go back and listen to the library, should help you. Today, we're going to talk about the collateral support program. So if all's going well technologically, you see my screen here. And on the left-hand side, I'm on Business Paralegal. And we'll go to the home page for a second. And then you can see that we're on the collateral support program. So let me scroll up here. So we've offered the collateral support program for a while now. And its primary purpose originally was to help small businesses alleviate a collateral shortfall. What does that mean? Well, what you and I know, we learned in school that if you want to borrow money, you have to be cognizant of the 3 C's: credit, collateral, and cash flow. Ideally, you'd want to be strong in all 3 C's, but we need to have at least one of the 3 C's if we want to go borrow money or access debt-based capital. Well, collateral is an area that is often in a shortfall with many small businesses. So in other words, they want to go borrow more money than they have assets on their balance sheet to be able to pledge as collateral. So we call that a collateral shortfall. That's bad, right? If you went and tried to buy a house, if you tried to go get a mortgage on a house and you tried to get a mortgage for more than the house is worth, typically it'll be declined. Why? Because the bank wants enough collateral, equity in the home or value of the home, that if you didn't pay, that they would have something to collect off of. So the collateral support program, as shown here, was really designed to be able to help small businesses add assets to their balance sheet very quickly, and their income producing assets, their real receivables. So that's not exactly the nature of the call today, but just painting the picture of the background. But what we started to learn, and we covered on this recent training, is that there's actually really good money to be made in debt buying. So a debt buyer is someone that acquires assets. As we've talked about before and as mentioned more deeply in this training, historically debt buying was done by very wealthy, high net worth individuals. They would, or institutions, organizations, they would buy big portfolios of defaulted mortgages, defaulted auto loans, defaulted credit cards, defaulted professional service agreements, and then they would collect off of those. Well, what we have done is this has evolved very nicely. So certainly, can we still get the assets on the small business's balance sheet very quickly so they no longer have a collateral shortfall? Absolutely. But what we recently rolled out, as you can see briefly here, a new debt buyer contingency-based litigation program. And so without too much detail and without being redundant, what that means is once the debt buyer has bought the debt, if they would like, then we can actually go litigate it for them. So in other words, take that portfolio, go through the court system, obviously legally, and go collect that money. Because having AR is fine, but the goal really isn't to have AR, even though it helps the balance sheet as we're talking about up here. But ultimately, we want to turn that AR into cash, right? And so there's different ways to liquidate AR, but one of which is to litigate. So we've talked about that before. So that kind of gets us caught up to our topic today. We're really excited and pleased to roll out a new type of debt portfolio. So this isn't a different program, it's all what we've talked about, but we have now a new class of debts that can be bought in a portfolio. And I'm going to give you some details, and some of this may be a little bit foreign, but it's very interesting and powerful to understand it. So I want you to understand how these premier debt portfolios work. Now, you might say, what's in it for me? Well, if you are helping us help small businesses, you can be a debt buyer. You can buy a portfolio and then sell it. You buy it at wholesale, sell it at retail to your client. So now we've alleviated the client's problem. They have resolved their collateral shortfall. Their balance sheet now is strong enough, and you made money by brokering the deal. You might say, well, how much money would you make by brokering a debt portfolio? It's up to you, because you're deciding how much you want to mark it up. But typically, well, we'll leave that for a separate discussion. But with that being said, this is applicable to you if you're in the industry of helping small businesses access capital, because a lot of them have a collateral shortfall, and this is probably the best solution to instantly resolve that. Secondly, this might be applicable to you if you're just looking to make money, and I'll show you how the making the money works. So even if you didn't want to resell it. So let's briefly go through the background, and then we'll get down to page 2, which is where the meat of the matter is, because we're going to be talking about the new premier debt portfolio. So the background, what is a debt buyer? As I kind of mentioned, debt buyers buy delinquent or charged off debt at a fraction of the debt's face value. So this is not AR financing or AR factoring. This is non-performing debt. Non-performing debt can be purchased very cheaply, right? What we know is that the most successful debt buyers collect on the debt through litigation, and there are contingency-based litigation firms. So what does that mean? Well, once you have debt, you got to figure out how to convert it into cash. And what we know is that people that don't pay their bills often have a history of not paying their bills. So the old school approach is, well, I'll send them to a collection agency. Well, usually they don't care about that because they already have credit, and then they'll use credit repair to take the negative things off. So what did you accomplish? So the new phase going forward is litigation, because litigation works. Frankly, it almost always works 99.9% of the time. And then you can go through that litigation process by outsourcing it. So you don't have to go down to the courthouse and file yourself. And there are contingency-based firms that will do that, like Business Paralegal, where you don't even pay anything. We'll even pay the filing fees, which are expensive. So debt buyers are looking for a hands-off approach to add assets to their balance sheet while having a potential huge ROI. And we'll talk dollars and cents in a second. The point is there's 2 applications of this that you need to consider. One of which is if you're, let's take Joseph, who's online. He's a realtor, big hitter up in Northwest Arkansas. He's always out talking to small businesses, looking to help them access capital. Well, I don't know that he would just bring up in his initial conversation over at Starbucks in Bentonville, Arkansas, about the collateral support program. But what he knows is once the client's on board, and then he's working with them, they're going through the process. And if we identify that their balance sheet is too light, in other words, they don't have enough assets to pledge as collateral, then what Joseph will do then is solve that client's problem, and he'll mark it up and make profit off of it. So that's one application again. The other is you could buy it just not necessarily for the balance sheet perspective, but to make money off of it. And that's what we're going to talk about next. So how do we, and again, this is a bit background. We'll get into the new information in just a moment. But those of you that weren't on the prior training, I just want to make sure you have a good background, or it's a refresher for the rest. So litigation, or which means suing the debtor, is a very successful strategy to liquidate, meaning collect 100% or even more of the principal debt owed, in addition to late fees and court costs, resulting in an extraordinary ROI for the debt buyer. Now, again, you could be a debt buyer with the intent of being a debt seller, or you could be, meaning that you're like Joseph, helping his clients solve the balance sheet issues, or prospectively, you could be a debt buyer and hold it and then liquidate it. So understand there's 2 applications. The same example we used before, we'll just go through briefly because people seem to really like it. We'll pick Bruce. Bruce is on the line here. And of course, Bruce is taking care of business. But let's just say Bruce is a white label partner. He signs up and he doesn't do what he says he'll do. He's not helping at least 8 clients a month. So that means that he has breached his white label license agreement. So now Bruce owes $10,000. Well, what will happen is we'll sell that debt. So let's say that we have Lon, and Lon's looking to buy some debt. So Lon could buy Bruce's defaulted breach contract. Well, what does Bruce now owe Lon? Bruce now owes Lon $10,000. That's pretty good because Lon just paid pennies on the dollar, but it gets better. Then there's daily late fees built into the agreement. So now instead of Bruce just owing Lon $10,000 every day, it goes up by 50. So now he owes $50 on the first day, $100 on the second, $150, and it builds. So over a month, now Bruce, the debtor that breached his agreement in this hypothetical example, now owes Lon not only the principal, but also $1,500 more. Do the math on that. That means that Lon's asset is growing in value by 15% per month. That's double digits per month. The stock market's doing terrible right now. Real estate's kind of rocky, but find another asset that will grow in value by double digits every month without fail. That's huge. So then what Lon can do is then collect now that larger amount. Let's assume it's in the court system for 2 months. So there's 2 months of late fees that Bruce has incurred. So now Lon's new balance owed is $13,000. So he can collect that. And it's an extraordinary return on investment because when Lon buys Bruce's defaulted agreement, he's not paying the full $10,000. He's paying pennies on the dollar. So hopefully that math makes sense to you. So the way we feel is that this model, which is debt buying, has a far superior profitability opportunity than real estate. Sorry, Joseph, whether it be investing and flipping or buying and holding, or even playing the stock market or cryptocurrency. All right, so I'm going to get into this new Premier portfolio in just a second, but are there any questions on the background? And this is a bit redundant, but if we don't understand the foundation, then this new advanced portfolio probably won't make sense. If you have any questions, just type it into the Q&A and I'll address it for everyone. Okay, so I think everybody's on the same page. We understand there's 2 applications of this. You could either broker deals to help small businesses resolve their collateral shortfall. So technically you're a debt buyer, but then you're a debt seller. So you bought it and sold it for a markup. And that's what businesses do. That's what entrepreneurs do, is make money. And then secondly, the second application is it could be to buy the debt and then to liquidate it and keep the increased profit yourself. See the difference? Okay. So now let's get down to the new portfolios. And so this is brand new. We've been, selling portfolios for quite a while, but now we have, and we've sold to big law firms. You've heard the story. The biggest one we've sold is to a big law firm out of Austin, Texas. I think it was $3 million and some change. They bought it not to build their balance sheet, but they bought it to liquidate it and collect money from the debtors. So now we have new debt portfolios that are available just as of today. So let's go through the breakdown of this, because if you pay attention to these bullets, it's profound. This is the best debt portfolio I think that could ever be constructed. So let's break it down. The first thing is that the principal amount is meaningful. So would you want to go buy a debt portfolio of small amounts where people owed $50 or $100 or $250? Well, you could. And if you bought a big portfolio, it's still the cumulative amount, but now you're dealing with a lot of small debts. This is a more sizable debt. And the industry, if it's at 10,000 or more principal, it's considered gold standard. That's the term they use. So here we're talking about gold standard. So it's a principal amount off of, frankly, defaulted white label partner licenses. Now, what you know about white label partner licenses is that they have agreed to $50 a day late fees, which is good because, as we talked about before, now that money's growing by 15% every month. So even before it's gone to court, it's getting bigger, it's getting bigger, it's getting bigger. Think about how many assets can you buy that's going to grow that fast, that predictably? I don't know of any others. If you know of something, let me know. We used to think cryptocurrency was that, but that's kind of reversed its course. Also, that amount can jump up. So the amount's growing because of the daily late fee. So we'll have to file an addendum to the petition before court to capture all the late fees, because the longer that the court process takes, the more the late fees have grown. So obviously we want to go to court as quickly as possible, but if the court's backed up, the longer it takes, the more the person owes you. So that's good. And then secondly, remember there's what we call the default boost. The white label partners in these default agreements, they've agreed to a non-competition provision. So when we go through the discovery process, if we find out that they violated that, then that can increase the principal amount considerably. Because what we're going to do, so not harping on the white label partners, but just using that as a real example. So let's say a white label partner defaults. We'll litigate, we'll sell the debt, we'll go to litigation, and then we're going to start discovery. And thus far, I can tell you, we've been 100% successful in discovery. So if we go to the court and ask the judge to require that the debtor provide something, we're literally at 100%. So we're going to ask for bank statements and tax returns and all kinds of information to figure out, are there any other breaches associated? And so in many cases, what we'll find is some of the debtors not only owe for the breach of license, but there's extra damages. So the point is that this debt could automatically grow from 10,000 to 12 to 14 to 20 or much more. Why is that good for the debt buyer? Because now the asset that you paid only pennies on the dollar for originally has blossomed, has grown. It's like buying a house very cheap, and then all of a sudden they announce some sort of development going by it. So now that property is worth 10 times what it was before. That's the type of growth that could occur. Even if that type of growth doesn't occur, it's still, of course, a good principle. All of these agreements, which you'll want to know as a debt buyer, you want to know who owes the money, right? Who owes the money? So for these premier portfolios, both the business, if it exists, now sometimes there's not a business yet, but if the business exists, both the business owner and the business has guaranteed it. So what that means is when we get the judgment, then we can go liquidate the bank accounts of the business owner and the business itself. If the business has a cash register, this is how amazing it is. Let's say it's a retail type business that is on the contract. Literally, we can have the sheriff go with proper court orders, empty the bank account out. The sheriff will take all the cash on hand, take the assets. So there's legal ways to do that, but a dual guarantee for debt buyers is golden. All the media, of course, there's no defense. Defense means what a debtor would say to say, no, I don't owe that money. You know, for someone to say, no, I didn't breach that agreement, you have to be able to prepare for that. But these agreements are irrefutable. So again, gold standard. Here's the real kicker. And I was talking to Alfred about this yesterday, and he understood this. A lot of people don't know. There is a provision that can be added to a contract, which all of these premier portfolios have, that actually eliminates the need for trial. So the petition still has to be filed with the court, but what it means is the debtor has waived the right to trial. So literally, there is no trial. It goes straight to judgment. Think about how powerful that is. File the case, skip the court case, go straight to judgment. And that's one of the main reasons this is called a premier portfolio, because not only is it literally 100% winnable because they've already admitted to default, essentially. Secondly, it's much quicker. So the debt buyers get their money quicker. And then we have preferred jurisdiction. All right, so does anyone have questions on how the premier debt portfolios are constructed, the relevance of it, the powerfulness of it, the attractiveness of it? Because if you're considering being a debt buyer, you could certainly get one of our standard debt portfolios, but oh my goodness, these premier portfolios are freaking golden. Anyone have questions on the Premier portfolios? Why, as a debt buyer, that is golden? All right, and so again, this is applicable in two regards. If you want to go be a debt buyer and then sell a debt portfolio to one of your clients or any other small business that's looking at adding assets, we can add those assets to their balance sheet. Plus, we can help them liquidate it through our contingency-based liquidation program. We have these new Premier debt portfolios that are available, as I've just described, that are remarkably valuable. Any questions on that? The other, of course, is if you just simply want to buy a portfolio and liquidate it yourself and make the money off of it. Okay, I think we're good there. So if you're not a debt buyer and you want to become one, it's very easy. You would go to Business Paralegal and our collateral support program, which is the page we're at here. If you scroll down, you just put in just a little bit of information. You just let us know what your interest is, and you let us know if you're looking at buying a debt. We will then send you the debt buyer package, and via Adobe, you'll be able to complete that. And then lastly, if you want to, you can use our debt buyer contingency-based program to liquidate that debt. So let me give you a moment to type in any questions you may have. Anyone have any questions, comments, concerns on the new Premier debt portfolios? All right. Harry has an interesting question I never considered before. So Harry is a white label partner, and he is in default. Harry's asking, which is an amazing question, can he buy a portfolio that includes his defaulted license in it? I guess so. I guess that's an interesting workaround, Harry. I don't know how you ever thought of that, but yeah, I guess if you're a white label partner, if you've defaulted on your agreement one way or another, then you could buy a portfolio like Harry's suggesting that includes his own debt, and then choose not to litigate it and just write it off. That's amazing. And I guess I've thought about that before. Like if you had a house that was foreclosed, could you go to the bank and buy it for that reduced price? Now it might be an increased price, but in a normal real estate market, a foreclosed home sells less than a normal home. So could you foreclose on your home and then go and actually buy it back from the bank through the auction process or through their liquidation process? Yeah, you could. Same with cars. If you go buy a car at auto auction, you might see your car that was repossessed by Capital One and go buy it back. So I guess that's interesting. I would say yes, you could buy a portfolio, Harry, with your own defaulted white label license, and instead of having to pay the $10,000 that you promised to pay, you would just get it as part of the portfolio. That's interesting. All right, I don't think anyone can top Harry's question. Anyone else have any questions on the collateral support program, the background of buying debt, or the new Premier debt portfolios? All right, well, I think we're good. Now, tomorrow I'll be traveling on July 15th, so we won't have a morning training. We will be back on Monday. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.